you'd like to know more about what we do, we're going to share links and data on the chat room. So I would like to start by sharing my presentation and explain to you a bit more about who we are and why we decided to organize this event. Okay. So please let me know, Elias, if everyone is seeing the presentation.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you so much. So, CulturePolis, we are a civil society organization founded in 2006. So it's been already 18 great years, and we focus our work on the promotion of culture, intercultural dialogue. And for us, this means a social cohesion driver and inclusion, and we focus particularly on international and cultural relationship. We also focus our work on the promotion of cultural tourism, and particularly on the relations to cultural heritage at local and regional level, as we are an organization based on the island of Corfu in Greece. We support tourism and cultural professionals in their actions towards more sustainable and durable market options. And finally, we focus on strengthening structures and developing capacities for the cultural and creative sector. And what we're doing today, this roundtable is part of it. And we support these creative professionals in upskilling, particularly in entrepreneurship, marketing, and digital upgrading. So in these 18 years, we've developed awareness-raising campaigns, consultations, different capacity building offers, and citizen research, which we run together with other organizations, and we try to publish as open as possible the data. And these data leads us to more creative projects. So we've done more than 45 projects in all these years with various partners from different parts of the world, mainly from Southeast Europe and the Euro-Mediterranean region. This is, let's say, our natural geographical area of work, with loads more ideas and a great team and people that's been around CulturePolis. So today's event is part of our outreach events program, which is our effort after the COVID-19 period to reconnect with communities and people. We've lost touch, we've lost the physical workshops and all those things that you very well know we've been missing. And in 2024, we've started with a series of events like the ones you see here in the bullet points, like we've done network meetings in Cyprus. We've done the very traditional Vasilopita for those of you who know, because meeting people, old and new friends, is really great. We've hosted satellite events or from other conferences like the Tech for Humanity. And as I mentioned, the roundtables that we're running. And we have upcoming at the end of September in Corfu, cultural route that we've prepared with our team as part of the European Cultural Heritage Days, and also a series of workshops that we're starting in October with university students. So all of that needs collaborations with networks, partners, projects, of course, the funding, the spaces, and the media. And this is a great moment for me to invite all of you who are joining us today, in case you have an idea that you think that fits our profile and could be a good shared project, please don't hesitate to send it to us, send your idea, call us, or email us. So where does the creative skill gap comes in for CulturePolis? So we've been following the trends, as all of you are, in our sector, and we've joined the Pact for Skills, which is a great initiative of the European Union, from which we are trying to commit to specific goals every year. And also we are very fond of the knowledge sharing that's happening at the Pact for Skills. And from there, we've started grasping and understanding that what we see as skills gap in our environment and ecosystem locally might have similarities with other ecosystems around Europe. And so one of the things we've been doing to understand more of the challenges is that we're running, as I said, research. So I would like, as a starter, let's say, for our discussion today, to show you some of the results we've had from a research we've done for a project called Dialogue City. It's a Creative Europe project in which we try to identify specifically gaps, skills gaps from artistic communities and citizen communities that relate to smart cities and digital transformation. So this is a very specific topic, but it gave us an impetus to start working more on the skills gap. So the Dialogue City project, as the title says, is a project about dialogue, about exchange. And our perception in the project is that we're trying to enable artists, citizens, and decision makers to facilitate that dialogue about the future of smart cities. And part of the work we're doing is we try to do needs assessment for artists in future literacy skills. So this is a very particular set of skills. And because it's not very well known, we've added here the future literacy explanation, which are skills that help people. I mean, UNESCO has developed methodology around it. So the future literacy helps people understand why and how we use the future to prepare, plan, and interact with the complexity and novelty of our societies. And so they developed a methodology through laboratories with communities and individuals. So this is a set of skills that the future literacy methodology is trying to develop. But of course, there are many, many other skills. But we started understanding that there are interconnections between the different subgroups of skills. So the research we ran was in February 2023. It was all around Greece. It was experimental, of course, because we tried some topics that were not very common back then. And we've collected answers from 60 artists around Greece. It happened also in Austria, in Germany, in Italy, and in France. And so you can see here from the data and the tables that mainly we had responses from people 35 to 65, more or less male, female equally. And as I said, from our part, it was about the Greek audience. People had mainly university degree who responded, and about 15% high school. And of course, there was a lot of theater people, photography, visual arts, and then the rest of the categories. So I'm just giving you the data to understand a little bit of the context. So I'm sharing with you just two of the questions because we think they're important in understanding the skills gap and the soft skills gap. So we've asked, does the term future literacy skills relate to any of the following explanations? And as you can see, people related it to the shaping of a future vision, strategy, detecting trends, feasibility and impact assessment, and scenario development. And furthermore, the other question is from the list of skills that we've shared, we asked them to choose the ones that artists think that citizens and decision makers need to adapt to the digital change. And as you can see, we have #1 motivation, social awareness, resilience, and many more. And the hypothesis we did in the Dialogue City project, and this is important to mention so that the context is even clearer, is that artists are the enablers and the catalysts that can help citizens, decision makers to imagine the future and to interpret the future and their role in society and in the digital transformation of society and the smart cities. So this is just to say that there are a lot of things and a lot of topics that are really broad. Some are more theoretic, some are very practical skills we need. So that is our impetus to invite you all for today's discussion. But I would like now to invite our speakers, because we've thought that having this focus on Greece and Cyprus, which is a Greek-speaking mainly community, would help us understand a lot more and develop specific proposals for policy and for our own ecosystems. So I want to share a bit on the agenda. of today. So we've organized our discussion in 3 parts. The first is about the research approach. So we have 2 speakers who are going to give us a bit more insight on research results and how to do research, like how do we do mapping of skills gap. The second part is about the challenges, and we have 2 more speakers who are going to share with us their challenges and maybe some ideas how to overcome them. And finally, we've kept 3 more speakers to share with us good practices and successful examples, as well as the challenges they faced before finding those good practices and, let's say, those solutions. So without further ado, I would like to invite, and let me stop
Just a
sharing.
small interruption. In case
Yes?
you have any questions, please write them down at the chat, and we'll check all the questions that you have, and we'll address them to the speakers once all the speakers have finished with their presentations. So feel free, if you have any questions about anything you will hear, write it down to the chat box.
Okay, thank you, Lias. So I would like to invite, and of course I would like to introduce first Prodromos Tsiavos, who is the head of digital development and innovation at the Onassis Group and a senior policy advisor to the European Research Infrastructure for Open Science, Open Air. He has served as the chair of the Administrative Council of the Greek Industrial Property Organization and has founded the Hellenic Industrial Property Academy. He has over 200 publications and talks on cultural policy, artificial intelligence ethics and ethics by design, open science, IPR, and innovation policy and strategy. He's the director of the Institute of IPR and Innovation at the European Public Law Organization and has served as the chair of the supervisory board of the European Patent Academy. He's also currently teaching AI law and ethics at the Athens University of Economics and Business. Prodromos, I'm really glad to see you again, and please, the floor is yours.
I'm really glad to be here as well. I don't know if you wish me to have a slide deck, if you wish, or I can speak without it, whatever suits you. What do you think?
Please, if you want to share your slides, please do.
Okay, I will. And since this is a reset section, so what I would like to share with you is the approach we have at Onassis in relation to the question of innovation and digital development, and how this maps different types of skills that professionals need to have today. And if you'd notice from my short bio, I'm quite a confused person. So I started as a lawyer, but with great love for computer science. Then I moved to computer science and information systems. And what I do right now at the Onassis Foundation is a bit of both. And I think cultural workers of all sorts, as same as knowledge workers, they need to have multiple skills, and it's a question how we manage to develop these skills within an organization. So I'll speak about 3 main subjects which reflect the areas of activities of my unit at the Onassis Group. But by doing that, I'll go back to the types of skills we need and how we do this internal knowledge transfer at Onassis, hoping that it's going to give you a glimpse of a potential present, not just future. Though what's the title of my presentation was Building Blocks for the Future. So the first thing is that if you wish, the idiosyncratic thing of our unit is that we have a very strong internal looking side and also very strong external looking side. So we operate pretty much as a small consulting unit within the group. So we have our team has 2 parts, one in Athens, one in New York, and I'll tell you a few things about what we do and how this comes together. And we go to different teams within the organization. We provide consulting as to how they can bring new ideas internally, or how we can introduce programs to the rest of the world, not just the Onassis world. A few words about Onassis Foundation before I start, just to make sure we're all on the same page. We are a public benefit foundation, which still makes its money, which means we have a single board our business. And thank you. Thank you.
Maybe Prodromus, if you turn off your camera, because there are some slight. Can you hear us?
No? Yeah. I will. I think it's not. It's not. It's a fluctuation in my connection.
Okay. Yes, we've lost you. Actually, we see your presentation,
If you can hear me.
Prodromos.
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We've lost you when you started talking
Can you hear
about
me?
the Onassis Foundation.
But because there seems to be a fluctuation. 1 second. Is it any better now?
Yes, but we've lost the presentation. So please.
What I will try to do is I'll go through the presentation. If things, and I'll turn my camera off,
Yes,
hoping that this
great.
is going to be better. Just give me a second. All right. So Onassis Foundation is a public benefit or foundation, but it makes its own money, which means we have a single board that runs both the business side and the public benefit side. The business side is mostly ships, financial services, and investments. And up to 40% of our annual net profit is invested in public benefit activities, which are culture, education, and health. Culture is a huge thing in what we do in the public benefits. We have a cultural center in Athens, and also we have an accelerator for AI, extended reality, and what we would call in general art and advanced technologies in New York. And my unit within the organization, the Digital Innovation Unit, is responsible for the accelerator in New York and all innovation activities in Athens or wherever else in the world we have activity. So going back to what we do, as I said, we do three things. We support the digital transformation of the organization. The curatorial, we have another part of activity which is more curatorial and coordination, which is about producing public program. And finally, we provide consulting and knowledge development internally. And if you look what we do in terms of how it works, sometimes it may look like that. So it tends to be quite complex, and you're going to see quite a few diagrams, which let's say they are less than simple. But I'll try to simplify, and I'll start with my first thing, which is what is our vision. And our vision here, I don't think is very original in a sense. I think any cultural organization in terms of what they do in their digital strategy, that's what they do. So they need to be AI ready. And I'm saying AI ready and not introduce artificial intelligence. I'm not even saying having AI in all our activities, because in order to be AI ready, it means you need to have as a cultural organization, and I stop at that stage of the group, at that part of the group, you need to have the infrastructures and the data to do so. I'm reading so frequently about how you can increase productivity by introducing AI tools, or what it means and how it changes the production process. Let's say, just think of the copyright, how copywriting is taking place in the communications department, or how the creative departments produce images. But unless you do have some sort of basic infrastructure, data infrastructure, this thing doesn't work. I'll give you an example. This is the Cavafy archive. It's a literary archive which we have, and which has all the content, all the works of Cavafy, plus his personal library and personal items. And we started that more than 5 or 6 years ago as a digital project. And I think when we started that, we didn't think of this simply as a technical project or simply as a cultural project. It had to be a bit of both. So we had a very concrete target, which was to increase access to what we consider one of the most well-known Greek poets globally. And in order to do so, we chose to actually go for an open licensing policy. So all content that you see there, whether they're individual records or whether they are um, whether they are the works themselves or whether they are images of his personal work, they all of them are released under Creative Commons licenses, attribution share alike, which is pretty much the license that Wikipedia works. And the reason we have chosen that is precisely because we want people to do stuff that then they can link to the most, particularly with Wikipedia, both their data infrastructure and their actual content. So how is this relevant to our discussion today? We wouldn't be able to do that unless we had a very thorough training of our staff. Our staff were, initially we had an archivist, we had historians, literature people, but we didn't have any technology experts, or the ones we had, they were what we call the IT people. So they had nothing to do with each other. And that's why we as a department, we are not the ICT department. We are not the guys that fix the laptops and the computers. We are not the guys that run the servers. We are the ones which actually get the teams together to do this thing. So here we created an independent committee, which was very mixed. It had people which came from the digital world. So for example, we had Professor Spinellis, from the Athens University of Economics and Business, who's the guy that did pretty much the foundations of the e-government infrastructure in Greece about 15 years ago. So he's really an expert and also an open source and open content experts. But we also worked with civil society organizations like the Open Source Society. We open source is free and open source software organization. And also worked a lot with colleagues all over the world, which were Cavafy experts. And these were from all types of studies, whether they were literary studies, but it could be also gender, it could be also artists. We did a lot of artistic programs. So we created a collection and we opened the collection, but we thought the whole thing extremely holistically, which meant, first thing, we had to retrain all our staff and introduce new types of expert skills. Secondly, we deployed an independent board of world-class experts. We did not confine ourselves in Greece. Actually, the Greek board or Greek identity people, they were just like a minority. I think there were one or two. And as we say, that's because we work with people's ideas, not with people's IDs. The last thing is that we also worked a lot with very specialized companies that were able to maintain the program. And of course, we had the technical team in the ICT unit, which was able to implement. So that's, let's say, one technical example, which is anything but technical. And as I always say to our board, whenever we are to introduce a program, a new project, a new digital project, a digital project is almost never a technical project. It's always, however, a political project. The second initiative, which I want to share with you, it's an internal one, which I think, in a sense, it sounds like as an extremely simple one. But this is something which it really is the basis for anyone that wishes to create data sets for then to be deployed as in an AI context, any kind of large language model or any Gen AI type of system. And that means that's what is usually known as a customer relationship management, or infrastructure wise as a data lake and then a data center. And what we did, we changed the way we interacted with our customers, whether these customers were artists or whether they were general audience, because our quotation marks customers, technical terms, there are people that receive something from us. And these can be people that come and watch a show, or they attend a talk, or they may be artists that they're going to be in our accelerator or incubator in Athens or New York. And we collect all their data and we link it to the content they produce, and we're doing that for the past 2 years now. And it's led to a total organizational transformation. So we were very much a hierarchical pyramid organization when we started that. It was impossible to run this project without us transforming more to a grid organization. So for every program after this initiative here, we run now a tri-party +1, 3+1 organizational module, which is very much like what you're going to see in the next slides. We get the political approved direction from the director's office. That's the director general. And then we always have a three-tier partnership. The ICT department that ensures that we have the technical capacity to run it. The communications and content department, which ensures that we have the flow of content in order for the thing to run. And then what you see on the right side are the business owners, people doing education, cultural health, and these are, let's say, some services you see. And what you will notice is that these are services. The blue things are mostly, I would say, technical services, but they always need to have consulting. And the consulting the business people need, and the business people are cultural workers. They come from pure IT people, communications and content people, and people that actually understand where the digital strategy of the organization goes. And it's impossible to run any project unless you go through this structure. So all major decisions for any development projects run using this kind of model. Now, if you see that the way the building blocks you need is you need to have the digital infrastructure, which you see at the bottom of the page here. But you also need to have the data infrastructure, which is what we've been working for the past 2 years in the organization, and then develop a series of internal services. For example, being able to run a software development process or a production using some sort of workflow management tool from Asana and Microsoft project to any kind of custom-made projects, and finally external services which we give to the audience. So in order to be able to give these external services to the audience, which is what people see, you need the whole stack. If you don't have the whole stack, it's going to be hollow. It's going to be something which is going to collapse. And of course, this requires quite a bit of internal training. So if this is the hard part, which is our infrastructure, I would like us now to go to the second stage, which is, okay, this is the kind of consulting we do, I would say, for the basics. If you don't have this, you cannot do your job. Now, let's see how we push the organization to have a very strong digital program itself. And here we wanted to have digital and cross-media art at the core of our program. And for the Greek audience, if you notice the STEGI program over the past 5 years, you'll see these kinds of initiatives have increased a lot. This has happened extremely organically. We started working initially by buying productions. Then we started doing co-productions. And over the past 3 years, we worked a lot with productions we do on our own. And one of the examples which I think is the most successful one is what we call Plasmata, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest in Europe, exhibition about advanced technology and art happening in a public space. And that for me is a very interesting project in terms of the skill set it requires. The way we run this project is that we don't have the curatorial team working independently from the technical team, the communications team, the security team, the front of house team, and the food and beverage team. In lots of organizations, there is almost an acoustic separation between what the curators do and what the technicians and the production does. But that's something which really is totally outside our ethos, but honestly, is not practical. That's a huge project. It costs some millions every year. It has to run for 30 days. It goes to a public space, which is extremely demanding production-wise, which means I need to make sure when I start, my job there is to do the curatorial direction. I'm not doing the artistic direction, which is by the director of culture, but it is something which requires you to know what's happening in terms of how, for example, you're going to install an LED panel in a public space, how you're going to make sure that this is not going to harm the environment, how you make sure that the communities there are involved, which means you don't need just the curators, but you need a lot of people with social skills and people which are able to understand different aspects of the ecosystem. I'll just finish with two more things and stop the presentation here. If you see this is a very expensive initiative, but it addresses about, I mean, the last time we did it, we had about 500,000 visitors. So the expense per visitor is pretty low. But that's another one which I want to show you here, and that's a she's an artist that worked for NASA for about 7 years, and then she produced the work. The cost we had in order to facilitate the production of this work was about in the tens of thousands, but we had publicity which you cannot buy. We had a New York Times article. Similarly, we have many more things we do, like we do a lot of motion capturing in New York, and we'll start in Athens in 2026 as well. And this is presented in festivals at IDFA, at Venice, at everywhere. These are initiatives which have a fairly small cost in terms of what they actually cost compared to other initiatives, but a huge impact. So it's not necessarily just doing huge things, but being able to do smart things. And again, to be able to run that, you don't need just artists, but you need people that are able to understand how to run almost a startup incubator and accelerator in 2 locations and be able to communicate with each other. I'll stop here the presentation. I'm more than happy to take questions about how we bring these things together and what it means for the future of the cultural institutions and the skills its workers should have. Thank you.
Thank you, Prodromos. Thank you so much for your presentation and the insights to all the different profiles of skilled people you needed for the project. I'd like to keep the questions for a bit later so that we can hear a bit more on skills and mapping those skills from our next speaker, who is Milan Vracar, if I pronounce this well. Okay, so Milan studied management in culture and media. He graduated on a theme of International Theatre Festival. He's an independent cultural producer and the president of Association Cultura Nova. He was involved in many international projects and collaborating on many most important events in Novi Sad and in Serbia. He was also producing and coordinating innovative art initiatives and participating on international conferences and workshops, as well as residencies. Board member of several international networks, and he collaborated with institutions such as the Austrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Council of Europe, and more. And he has been working as a marketing manager in Cultural Center of Novi Sad and coordinating the candidacy of Novi Sad for European Cultural Capital in 2017. So please, Milan, we'd like to hear more about how you did the mapping for skills, if I remember well from our previous discussions, and your work. I think we're looking at you on the other, yes, direction. Thank you so much, Milan. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation. I I would like to present something that we did back in 2020 when we were invited to do the analysis for the SDC, which is Swiss Development Cooperation Program here in Serbia, and to share some insights on how we did it here. So maybe it might inspire you to do something similar in Greece and Crete. And yeah, so let's see where it will lead us. But here is my presentation.
Milan, we can't
Do you see the
hear
screen?
you. Maybe you can close your
Can you see
camera.
the screen?
Yes, now we can see the
Yeah,
screen.
I'll try
Yes. So if you,
Okay,
thank
good.
you.
So just to minimize this. So yeah, that was the scoping study that I already explained. It was we started doing it back in 2019 and finished it by the end of that year, so December 2019. It was done by Goran Tomka, Vishnya Kisic, two researchers, PhD in cultural policy, and me. As I said, it was developed to guide the Swiss Cooperation Office in designing the cultural development program within the Swiss Cooperation Strategy for Serbia. Some of you might know they had Pro Helvetia Foundation before, but they in these years they decided to move in this direction. And so how we did it. So we collected some inputs from civil society organizations. We did desk and field research. We did interviews and focus groups with stakeholders. And based on all of that, we developed some kind of recommendations for the program scope and implementation. So what was the purpose, scope, and outline? The focus areas included broad understanding of culture within an emphasis on interactions with marginalized practices, the role of arts and culture in fostering open democratic societies, and support for civil society in culture. We did 10 interviews with civil society organizations outside of Belgrade and Novi Sad, which are two major, like the biggest cities in Serbia. Me living in second biggest Novi Sad, but we kind of tried to see more what is at the peripheries of those cities. And we also did 2 focus groups with various stakeholders. And just a little bit more about social political context of culture here in Serbia. We are facing increasing political polarization and promotion of exclusive identities, decline of multicultural policies leading to more segregation, although some parts, including Novi Sad, are very proud that we are super multicultural, diverse, multi-confessional city, but that is just at the surface. Media fragmentation and the rise in violent discourse, lack of spaces for public engagement and critical thinking. There are, of course, certain geographical disparities and failed decentralization that we are facing in Serbia, especially if we look this relationship between rural versus urban centers. And here listed some challenges. We do have in Serbia 17 languages, 6 religions, and 28 ethnic groups. But as I mentioned, that is just in the surface. What we are facing in reality is that all those different subgroups are living some kind of they are living next to each other. There are no links in between them. And even that diversity has been in decline, with increasing ethnic, linguistic, and religious homogenization. Multiculturalism policies have failed to promote inclusion, resulting in further segregation, particularly in large urban centers. And there is a need for intercultural dialogue and support for pluralism of identities. That is something that was especially emphasized during those interviews and focus groups. There are different concepts of culture. How is it understood in Serbia? Public authorities understand it in one way, general public in some other way, and civil society in culture in some maybe third way. For me, of course, the closest one is this, how civil society understands it, and it is seen as a tool for social engagement and activism, challenging dominant norms and promoting critical thinking. As you can see, that is a bit different to what other actors thinks. Speaking about trends in cultural participation, there is decreasing of cultural participation in Serbia over recent decades, with only 59.8% of citizens participated in any cultural activity in 2015. Those are Eurostat data. Cinemas are the most attended cultural activity, while visits to cultural sites are least popular. Participation is higher among urban population, women, and individuals with higher education. Speaking about cultural actors in Serbia, there is, of course, complex network of cultural actors, as anywhere else, I think. Public institutions, with over 500 institutions that are heavily reliant on public funding. Non-institutional cultural actors, so civil society organization, independent artists, etc., and freelance artists. Those data that we gathered led us to conclude what are some trends and issues in Serbia. There is trend of renationalization, so focused on promoting national, religious, ethnic, and linguistic unity. There is a focus on creative industries. The government has placed emphasis on creative industries as a path to economic development, on audience development as well. So there is a growing interest in expanding cultural participation through cultural changes and their deprofessionalization. So very often cultural institutions are increasingly run by politically appointed officials without cultural background, undermining professionalism. When we talk about funding for the culture sector, Serbia cannot really be proud since it is investing less than 1% of its annual budget in culture, and it is one of the lowest in Europe. And there are some cultural fields that are particularly prioritized, such as films, music, and theater, although when it comes to theater, we can go deeper, but there is no time now. The majority of culture budget, which is 69%, goes to supporting national cultural institutions. So there is very little money left for independent civil society organizations. And also like 75% is going to heritage-related projects, so conservations, etc. That also includes protection of church properties, especially in Kosovo, but that's another topic. Funding for culture sector. Culture projects are often underfunded. And on top of that, there is, even if you're successful in European projects such as, for instance, Kultura Noise, you have a problem with finding a co-funding for your project. So you're very often forced to somehow swim in not so easy waters. When it comes to main challenges and opportunities, I will just list those challenges. There is a challenge of shrinking civil society and rising distrust in civil society organizations. There is a challenge of geographic inequalities in culture access. and there is a challenge of overemphasis on cultural production and large audience. Of course, for each of those challenges, we also gave some kind of solution. But I don't want to steal too much time. So in a nutshell, that is how our research went. It was, I mean, at the end, successful. So the SDC, of course, accepted it, and they are still actually, although it was made to last until 2022, they are still working by this project, by this research, I mean, that we made. So thank you for your time, and thank you again for the invitation. Feel free really to get in touch if you would ever need a partner in Serbia, or if you have some interesting project. We are more than welcome to work with you all, guys. Here are my contacts, so we'll be more than happy to be in touch with you.
Thank you so much, Milan. Thank you for sharing the results of the research. So if I got this right, just to clarify, as we're talking about skills gap, did you particularly focus on any skills gap? Prodromos mentioned to us what kind of skills their team needed in order to develop the different programs they needed. Or was it more about the context?
Yeah, we did. I mean, that was not the focus. I have focused here on what was the focus of the research.
Yes.
But of course, during that study, we also identified that there is a huge lack of course, intercultural competences. That is the first one, but also some digital skills, green skills. That is something that was lacking.
Okay, great. So thank you again. Just as a reminder, in order to give everyone the bigger picture of our discussion today, please, if you have any questions, share them in the chat, and then we'll have the chance after the presentations to group them and to discuss openly. So after our let's say, deep dive into processes of bigger organizations and of mapping for entire countries. So more about now the challenges. And we have invited two speakers, one from Greece and one from Cyprus, to share with us some challenges they've been facing in their work and their communities and their particular field. So I would like to invite first Yorgos Papadakis, who is an artistic projects manager at the Greek National Opera and Bijou de Kant in Greece, as I said. So he's a freelance project manager and specializes in the performing arts field. He's part of the EU-funded project management team at the National Opera and production manager at the non-profit theatre company Bijou de Kant. He studied theatre studies at the National Kapodistrian University of Athens, cultural management at Pandion University, and music, opera, and performance at the Conservatorium Musiki Orizodis in Athens. His previous professional experience includes performing and managerial positions in various artistic projects in Greece and abroad. So, Yorgos, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Greetings to all. I'm very happy to be here with you. I would like to thank CulturePolis for inviting me to the second roundtable meeting, Maria Luisa and Ilias, especially. My name is Yorgos Papadakis, and I work as a project manager in artistic and educational projects that are based on art all times, especially the performing arts. I started my professional career as a classically trained singer, as an opera singer, and assistant director for opera and theater. But after the coronavirus period, which was a big break for all of us that we got down ourselves, I'm primarily occupied with project management in the field of performing arts. Thus, my words come primarily from experience in the field of performing arts, shows, and educational programs, as I mentioned, as a cultural manager, mainly in public sector or subsidized private sector. Generally, I have worked at the innovative and non-profit side of the performing arts industry, and not at the profit-oriented sector like commercial theater or popular music concerts. I was called to talk about the challenges cultural professional faces in their daily lives related to skill shortages. There are a lot of challenges because during our career, creative and innovation is present always, and creativeness and innovation is about the constant inventing of a new know-how, and that's creating constantly new skills to be learned. For me, a big challenge is finding at first the inspiration for planning new projects, or to be more honest and more exact, finding the time to dedicate to the creative process. Another one is the constant need of an alert mind for problem solving on ongoing projects. And I actually believe that these two aspects of creative work quite often compete each other for the resources of the mind. And I will explain later. I will start talking about the second challenge I mentioned, the one of constant problem solving on ongoing projects. As I told you, I have primarily worked in public sector. It is true that public organizations where my professional experience is focused often undertake innovative and risky projects thanks to the support of public or private grants and European funding programs. The above-mentioned financial support comes with obligations on the part of the beneficiary, such as accurate and detailed reporting, handling complicated compliance procedures, requirement of solid legislation knowledge, and building a firm economic accountability system that funding programs demand for the economic control. All these fundamental aspects of publicly supported projects require a lot of time to meet the standards of the funding program. In tandem with making the idea happen and giving flesh and bones to a planned on paper project, cultural managers are very often required to have or to develop high expertise in skills that we could say traditionally belonged to more technocratic professions that are taught in business school. Knowledge about regulations and law is quite often hard to reach, and guidance is limited on the spot learning. There is a lack of training seminars inside the field for cultural workers. I would like to be more specific about these regulations by mentioning public procurement procedures as an example. Public procurement procedures expressed in the Directive 24 of the European Parliament, initiated in Greek legislation with the law 4412 of 2016, are applied to cultural organizations of the public sector equally in European funded and nationally funded projects. It's more of a public sector thing. These regulations affect in a significant way the progress and the planning of cultural projects. To prepare a master plan, for example, for a project where public procurement procedures are involved, one should know a ton of details about the way they should organize their buying plan, contracting procedures, and take in mind the necessary time which is required for the regulations to be applied correctly. Since most of the cultural project managers have a strong artistic background, which is equally needed to develop a cultural project, public procurement procedures are a challenge they usually face during their career without preparation. And most of the times it happens in a stressful situation of time pressure when they shift to public sector. The compliance with the above-mentioned procedures, although is essential to the successful completion of a project, since funding is jeopardized by non-compliant practices. It is very common, for example, to hear a story in public theaters or generally public organizations about a new production manager that at the start of their career want to take over a project and start buying stuff with the production. And they discover step by step the procedure of public procurement, often in a very stressful situation of urgency, because public procurement needs some time, so the procedures are applied correctly. And this kind of frustration may lead to tension between administrative services and production managers or cultural professionals in general. Not to mention that the regulative framework is less than well adapted, in my opinion, to the needs of creative sector and cultural work, although it's applicable. It is observed that in public artistic organizations worldwide, the collaboration between administration officers and artistic managers is often deficient. A lot of times, both sides fail to deeply communicate about their work, initiate each other to their world, and exchange knowledge. Secondly, another challenge a manager always faces during their career is national law about taxation and social security regulations. They become a cause of dispute sometimes between managers and artists that negotiate to come on an agreement. Most of the time, managers and artists have a completely different point of view concerning the financial aspect of the agreement, and tension is quite a common phenomenon, especially at the beginning of one's career. A common example is the notion of net and gross fee. Although these notions may be clear to someone who is familiar with the official jargon, it is not that uncommon for the two worlds, artists and managers, to disagree. Both sides tend to use words that work fine within their cycle of communication, sometimes ending up using different words to describe the same concepts or give different meanings to the same word. It is getting even harder when it comes to international agreements in bigger projects where special European regulations are applied and the legal framework is different for each party. Thirdly, in intellectual property legislation, understanding is a common challenge that cultural managers have to face. Even though we have in mind that law is for the lawyers, intellectual property law plays a very important role in negotiations between artists and managers, since all agreements are written using the jargon and the concepts mentioned in the legal texts. A skilled manager should be able to understand these concepts and convey the terms of the agreement they had with the artist to the lawyer with accuracy, so that the contract pleases both sides the way it is written. Otherwise, the contract writing becomes a stressful and time-consuming procedure of sending back and forth drafts of the agreement. It happens a lot. On the other hand, it is very common for artists to feel uncomfortable reading legal notions and sometimes quite afraid of being tricked because they feel insecure of what they really understand. All the above challenges occupy the mind of a project manager daily. These are some specific examples. Thus, leaving fewer time for creative thinking, in my opinion. Creative process needs silence, plenty of time, and calmness. These characteristics are often missing from the daily work routine of a project manager, though deadlines are active and new work has to be announced and planned to every detail, so it's accepted and funded. Concerning the creative process of planning new projects, I feel time is very restrictive for cultural managers working on active projects. And as mentioned before, it is very demanding for the mind to work on solution finding mode for the ongoing projects. At my experience, sometimes it is quite difficult even to arrange a no time restricted meeting to do a proper brainstorming session with our colleagues. Excuse me a bit. Concerning the creative process of planning new projects, it's quite it's a bit hard to combine actually with the everyday routine of the tasks. I feel that acquiring knowledge and understanding of regulations in a way so malfunctions are avoided from scratch and regulations are incorporated proactively during the planning process would be a very important step to improve time management. I think finding techniques to save time and energy for creative thinking is one of the most challenging tasks for a cultural manager, especially when it comes to works with demanding administrative work. Balance between office routine and creative thinking seems hard to achieve for me. I feel that it is hard to acquire all the necessary skills through studies, since most of this knowledge comes with practice and it's not well organized at educational institutions. Cultural organizations in Greece are quite late to incorporate induction techniques, personal education activities, and creative skills development training at their function. Last, I would like to mention, I feel it is quite hard for the managers and artists of the performing arts industry to develop digital skills. It is quite expected since education is primarily focused on the physical aspect of the performance and digital means of expressions are yet to be part of the formal education in arts. I felt it is demanding for someone to have access to education for digital skills development after the studies are finished as well. I strongly believe sector needs this sector, creative industries need constant skill development, and it should be a primary concern for people that want to develop these skills or people that are able to teach others to come together and share their knowledge in an organized or non-organized way. I'm very happy to be part of this meeting. I would like to thank you for your listening, and I hope my words coming from my personal experience brought some light to the topic.
Thank you so much, Yorgo. You really speak from experience. That's what it sounds like. And thank you for sharing these examples. They are very useful for us to pick, main topics that might come up in the other presentations. So I'd like to invite the next speaker, Naya Takushi Karakosta from Cyprus this time. She's an interdisciplinary, social engaged performance artist. She participated as an actress and performance in several theatrical plays, short films, and TV series. She created her personal documentary projects regarding women's empowerment, pleasure, and she also co-created the first inclusive and accessible documentary performance in Cyprus. As a drama facilitator, she designs her own methodology, which combines a variety of practices from documentary theater, educational drama, theatrical games, and more. And she introduces different teams of all ages and backgrounds through experimental workshops. She is also a co-founder of Kulumaka, the first inclusive theater and movement group with people with and without disabilities in Cyprus. Co-founder of the theater suitcase team Intraportas, performing classroom teenage plays. And her theatrical play, The Neon Tetra, was selected to get published by the Cyprus City. And she also co-created a series of educational STEAM for designs with digital fabrication based on the Cypriot tradition and awarded with the European Product Design Award 2023. Naya, thank you so much for joining us. And please let us hear your challenges from your work.
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me. Apologies for any noise, but I'm at rehearsal, so you may hear background noise. So, hello. I haven't written anything, just bullet points, because I would like to share my experience as an interdisciplinary performance artist. It was really interesting of having and seeing similar, actually, difficulties and challenges with the previous speakers. So I'm gonna start from the educational part, because here in Cyprus, and just a disclaimer, by Cyprus this time I mean the South Cyprus, which is the Greek Cypriot part of the island and not the Turkish Cypriot part of the island. So my experience is going to be on the Greek Cypriot part of the island, and that's important to be aware of that, because it's different, a different kind of situation in the Turkish Cypriot part of the island. So in the Greek Cypriot part of the island, what I found really difficult, I'm gonna start from the educational part, because we only have, like, in performing arts, we only have one private school for acting. We do not have any public institutions. So, for example, I studied in Thessaloniki at Aristoteliou University, but if I wanted to be an actress in Cyprus, we only have one private school, which is not even accessible to study there. So that immediately creates a gap between the inclusivity, the educational methods, the performing arts methods, or even, as Yorgos said, the digital gap, that we don't have training on what modern performance practical are. So that's a huge gap, immediately not having the access to educational institutions and have a variety and a choice of different institutions here in Cyprus. So that's the first part, which is really important. The second one is the funding, which we always come to that, unfortunately, because what happens here in Cyprus is that there are some, I'm not going to speak about the European funding, which we all know that we can have access to that, but what happens here is that the ministry has some fundings, application fundings, but it's not applicable for a freelancer artist, or it's not enough money, because you have to have, like, working with an organization that's going to host your performance. For example, I have a performance personally, let's say, project, and it's going to be even more hard to apply to those public fundings because I won't have an organization hosting my performance. So I first have to come to an agreement with a theater-based organization that has stage, and then apply to the public fundings. So how we survive, let's say here, is fortunately for us, we do have some residencies, and that's where I develop my methodologies, etc. We do have some residencies with different organizations that they're more like individual creations, and they got some of the fundings, the public fundings, because they had, like, studios, and they created the chance to do residencies over there and to exchange and do the research, which for me is a really important aspect of having as a performance artist. The third part, let me just check because I forgot my third bullet point. The third part, besides the educational and the funding and the grants, which I already mentioned, is the exposure issues. We are a really small island, actually, and unfortunately, the exploration and the exposure, it's limited to what happens inside the island, not even besides between the two communities, even though there are some programs and some bi-communal performance arts festivals, and that's really great. But most of the times, the exposure, it's really, really limited. And it's like in between cities. So the artists are exposuring actually in the same audience. So what that creates is not having the feedback and the exchange of ideas and the exchange of new performances and new techniques, new practices. So that's for me a gap in what I face here in Cyprus, living in Cyprus. Yeah, the small domestic market actually lines that up. So pretty much it's in as short as I can put out is these three domestic, the educational one, the funding, and the exposure, which sometimes it does create a gap and a limited kind of exploration in arts. And on the other hand, for me personally, I was lucky enough to be part of the residencies, to exchange with international artists through these residencies. So I had my chance to explore and create new techniques, but that's not always the issue here in Cyprus. So yes, thank you for having me here for any more questions that you're gonna have, and feel free to communicate and exchange your ideas with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Naya. Thank you for sharing with sincerity and openness the gaps. May I ask you at the personal level, because Milan mentioned earlier some green skills, digital skills, intercultural gaps. Could you just identify from your personal, or maybe from your team or field, some skills gaps, not just the systemic, like infrastructural gaps that you mentioned?
Yeah, first of the things as skills gap that comes to my mind is the writing proposal fundings, which is a skill. Having the chance to create your own teams and your own collaborators. For me, that's also a skill and important self-care. I think that we should reclaim, but sometimes because we don't have enough jobs and you don't even have the space to do that. So not having the opportunity to create our own team and work with them. Actually, I think nowadays some individual teams and groups have developed the digital aspect of their work, but again, not all of them. I mean, it's more like, for me, it's more like an individual need or an individual consent that's going to drive you into all the digitalized, all the modern practices. So, and another skill is I feel that we don't have in theater, because in dance, we do have it more from my experience. We don't have like the get together and exchange ideas and exchange practices and learn from each other. So that's a skill gap that I would like to develop here in Cyprus. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yes, you did. You did very well. And it's from a personal experience, which for us is very important to see the issues. I mean, Milan mentioned to us what happens in Serbia, which is not a huge country either. So we are trying to understand the different patterns and trying to hear about solutions as well. So Naya, thank you very much. If anyone has a comment or a question, please please put it in the chat again, and we'll try to address this towards the end of the presentations. I would like to move on from the challenges and the research methods to some good practices and successful examples now. We have 3 speakers, as I mentioned, and I would like to start by inviting Christos Papamichail, who is a project manager from Greece and Cyprus. So he has this dual status. So Christos is a dramatist and actor, a graduate of the Department of Theatre Studies of the Faculty of Philosophy at the National Kapodistrian University of Athens and of Praxis 7 Drama School. He has participated in numerous artistic, educational, and collective projects as an artist, coordinator, assistant director, producer, and trainer. In 2016, he founded the cultural organization Liminal with the aim of applying the concepts of inclusion and accessibility in culture, a topic he researches and develops to this day. In addition to running the organization, he's also in charge of project management and works as a trainer, producer, and consultant for creative accessibility in Greece and Europe. Christos, please let us know good practices and successful examples from that came out of challenges, of facing challenges, if you may. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you especially to Maria Luisa. I'm really honored to be invited here. Thank you for the previous speakers for their sharings, their valuable sharings. Actually, I was thinking that that was a tough request from your side for me to find positive examples and trying to think of things and projects and events that I noticed or I experienced. I want just to underline the fact that most of the examples that I could find in Greece and Cyprus are mostly and maybe only independent and private attempts. So I think that there is the absence of the state in both countries is very noisy. It's very loud, I would say. So just to begin with, you said that we come to best practices and innovation through challenges. More or less, I can relate to this statement. I come from Cyprus, a very small village in Paphos, Cyprus. I'm the second child of a big family of displaced Greek Cypriots. And I wanted to study theater and interact with the art from a very, very young age. And in Paphos, I managed to see my first professional performance at the age of 15 or 16. And at around that age, I managed to get into amateurs theater group to start being trained in theater, in the art I wanted to explore. Based on this trauma, let's say, or challenge, once few 8 years before, I came up with the idea of creating Liminal. I was back then an actor, I was an artist, and I wanted to create an organization, a place, a platform that would be serving equality, access, and inclusion to the arts. So that's how I started developing all these ideas and trying to figure out and find methodologies and ways to develop such a project to make more, to get some equality on my practices as well. So in terms of skills, I am an artist who was somehow forced to become a manager, a producer, a fundraiser, and all these skills skill requiring task that someone in the Greek or Cypriot context needs to develop and do, because the infrastructure is not really there to get some more segmented task, and then the volume of the projects and the industry is not really that big to support this καταμερισμός εργασίας. I don't know how to say it in
What how do you not devise split the tasks, let's say,
Yes,
in the
yes.
most
Distribution.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you
Thank you.
distribute roles and tasks? Thank you.
Yeah. So I chose to refer to two projects that I really feel that developed the skills of and the capacities of myself, and also within the community of Liminal, I saw that it's valuable. Their valuable contribution. So first of all is Start Create Cultural Change. Is a project that was run by Bosch Stiftung and Gede Thessaloniki. I had the opportunity to participate in one of the years. I think it was for 5 years. Maybe we can share more details on this project later, but it was a project addressed to Greek cultural professionals that wanted to initiate a social project within the cultural sector. And there, as an artist who didn't even knew how to write a proposal, I went there and I received very structured education and support and mentorship on how to develop a project from zero to implementation. And I got the chance also to, and the funding to implement for 6 months the project that I had designed during my residency and my job shadow period of 2 months in Germany, where I had the opportunity to observe very closely the operations of an inclusive theater in Berlin. It's called Rambazamba. And also, I remember this period of 2 months as one of the calmest. I think Yorgos earlier mentioned that to create, you need silence and time and comfort, let's say. It was the only 2 months of my life that I could focus on my research. And even till today, 8 years after, I don't know, 7 years after, I am capitalizing on this research and this education and these trainings that I received. And I think Argiro after me will share some information on this, but besides the personal benefits that I took from this project developed in the Greek creative and cultural sector a big network of like-minded and like-educated or professionals, and it's very valuable to know that there is a big pool of people that you can look for support, for collaborators, for ideas, for inspiration, and you know that at least you have a small common basis and understanding on socio-cultural, let's say, projects and development. This is, I think, a very crucial element of my experience that allowed me to create and develop Liminal as it is today. Liminal today is a cultural organization, it's an NGO based in Athens, Greece, but we operate in Greece, Cyprus, and Germany so far. And we are the major accessibility services provider in the country. We create inclusive and accessible productions. We have formed a big community of professionals with and without disabilities and from other groups, minority, let's say, groups. And we are heading to the future. And I would like to share two small projects that we developed within Liminal. The first one is called Liminal Access Force. The idea was to engage a diverse audience with and without disabilities with cultural production and cultural management methodologies. So we ran the 6 months of trainings, digital trainings, along with Lida Tsene, an academic in the field of communications, to share information and give inspiration in cultural management from different aspects with the lens of inclusion and accessibility. I think it was one of the most impactful projects we did with Liminal. We had blind and deaf and wheelchair users following these workshops. Eventually, we all developed in digital. It was COVID period. That's why everything was digital. Eventually, we developed a digital festival hosting accessible artworks. But the most valuable thing is that several people from this workshop, today they run their own projects, either they are disabled or not. They are very active. They develop their own organizations. They run workshops, events in different places in Greece. And also it allowed us to create the capacity within 2 members of the participants, and now 2 of them are parts of our team. So we managed to share the skills we wanted and then create the people that today we are collaborating in an everyday basis. And do I have another 2 or 3 minutes, Maria Luisa?
Of course, Christo, because you said you were going to tell us one more project, so I really want to hear about it.
This is the project. So very early in our operations, we realized that the accessibility services that we provide to third parties is a very inaccessible thing. So there is till today no way that an organization, a small organization, an independent theater group, an independent artist, visual artist, a dancer, any non-privileged artist or artistic group cannot support the resources, either it's financial or time and energy and work, to accessibilize their outputs, their processes and their works. So this was bothering our team for a long time, and then we came up with the idea of giving access to the access tools to the creators. So we came up with a methodology called creative accessibility, and we worked. This was the result of a 1 year's research work, and then we implemented this in a performance in Cyprus. Naya was participating in one of it, and then we did another performance in Berlin. The idea is that if creators understand the mechanism of accessibility, the reason about the need of accessibility and what purpose is serving and how it's made, then they can create performative arts that are already accessible by default. It might not be by the book, but it will be something that is also organically fitting with the creative language of the show or the performance. And we figure out that the quality of the access is even better. Based on the feedback that we received, this feels better and more efficient than the by-the-book accessibility services that we are accustomed to. And I think this is also a way of democratizing these privileged issues. And we can expand this idea to further than accessibility and about green transition and equality and gender equality, and all these things requires resources, money, trainings, time, and we have to at a certain point admit that this is a privilege and we need to make this a common ground for the sector. This is not the case so far. And I will like to close with a vision that we have, that imagine what will happen if, for example, on my field, if in every drama school we were teaching new actors and new directors and new creators on how to be more inclusive and more accessible, providing them with the reasons and the tools to do their job in a more democratic and equal way, how our sector would be transformed in few years, and what would be how fascinating will be the art that we will be able to watch and experience. Thank you.
Hristo, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and thank you for being honest that it was a difficult task we gave you to find the solutions and the best practices. We know that because there's so much missing in the cultural field and the creative field, if I may say, as also Milan mentioned, less than 1% of national budgets go to culture. So it's not any news that we are underfunded, but thank you for sharing good examples. And I understand, I mean, I kept some points, but I understand that doing things by design actually makes a huge difference in the result, whether it's the skills, capacities building, or the result, the artistic result and the management result. Actually, I think Yorgos mentioned this. So thank you so much. I would like to move on to our next speaker, Argyro Barata. Argyro is here as the president of the Culture for Change Network from Greece, and she designs interactive experiences for companies, organizations, and tourist destinations. She founded and manages Handpick, a production company that curates and organizes events in close collaboration with experts from the fields of music, design, visual arts, gastronomy, and technology. At the same time, she supports and trains up-and-coming creators in skills related to cultural entrepreneurship and with social impact and sustainable practices. She's an expert of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology for the Culture and Creative Industries, president, as I said, of the Association of Professionals Culture for Change, which promotes and advocates for sociocultural innovation in Greece, and mentor on Women on Top, a platform that empowers the economic and professional empowerment of women. So Argyro, please give us more info from C4C. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Luisa, for the invitation. And just to let you know, I'm a little bit under the weather, and if sometimes I have a little bit of gaps in my thoughts, please excuse me from now. So I'm here as the coordinator of Culture of Change and an association of professionals that are involved in the intersection between culture and civil society. So what I will share with you is how networks can actually be a helpful solution for the skills gaps that exist in our sectors. And I will share a few examples of what we have mapped in our 3-year lifespan of existence as a network. So let me share a brief presentation that I created. All good?
Yes, we can see your presentation, please.
Perfect. So Culture for Change is an active community of professionals that promotes and develops sociocultural innovation in Greece. The principles that governing our work and the way that we produce try to promote intersectorality, because as I said, we work in between the civil society and the cultural sector. Of course, social impact. We are very much interested in innovative working methods and new collective decision-making processes. And of course, we are in favor of transparency, inclusion, solidarity, legitimacy, equity, and the environmental footprint that our practices leave on our planet. We, at the time being, we are 91 members from all over Greece, and in particularly in 15 cities of Greece, and we have representatives in 11 of the 13th regions of our country. And this diverse ecosystem comes from a very wide range of different backgrounds, like from lawyers and cultural managers to environmentalists to psychologists, to philosophers, and many other backgrounds that are interested to use culture into their practices. As Christos shared with you before, Christos is also a member of our network. This network came to reality after the START program that Christos participated back in 2015. And from that 91 members, 47 of them are alumni of the START program. So what is interesting is how we can see that a program that actually created the base of a new, how to say, a new series of new professionals coming into the field in cultural management, that they are able to continue working together and accelerate their knowledge and the ways of working. I will not share much of this history. What I wanted to share more is the first seed in order to start the Culture for Change. Started in 2015 as an alumni program of START. And From there, other alumni from the Robert Bosch Stiftung in Greece came part of the process. From that, we had like 2 years of creating the network through horizontal participatory practices. And we were able to found our network in 2020 and have our first statute. And from there, we have created a strategic planning, a financial sustainability planning, our general assemblies, and we had the opportunity at the beginning of this year to organize our first big project into the program of the European Capital of Culture of Elefsina. So we are very proud to continue and create these opportunities for our members. The reason why I said these planning processes that we have done, like the outreach plan in 2021 or the financial stability planning that we are now on the second phase, is that because during these processes, we were able also to identify our methods that we want to intervene, and of course identifying the gaps in skills and how our members see their local environments and how they can grow. So the methods that we can create interventions are by designing community engagement programs, developing a capacity building programs, implementing events for the professional networking, curating scientific events, and of course advocating for the development of policies. Actually, more or less, all these pillars were part of what we did in Elefsina in 2024. And if you have the time, feel free to check what exactly we did there in our website, because I don't want to take more of my time explaining this in more details. And to continue the pillars of our intervention, in a horizontal way, in a vertical way, we have social inclusion, accessibility to all, well-being of mind and body, community participation, respect to diversity, protection of environment, equal opportunities to professional development. And in a horizontal way, education and advocacy are parts of how we can develop also these pillars. So through these development stages of Culture for Change, we had the opportunity to identify some creative skills needs. Well, I tried. It's a little bit. The how to say, the progression has more to do with my personal feeling and not with actually stats that are coming from this mapping, and. I would like at the same time make a few notes on what I have already listened from the other speakers. And first of all, I have to say that I totally empathize with you, and I totally agree with everything that you shared, especially around the challenges that we are facing as sector. So regarding the creative skills, what we see is that we lack to create place-based trainings in certain subsectors that work in different regions in our country. I'm giving here the example of the film industry and the cash rebate program that took place through our film industry, to our state film industry administration. This cash rebate program actually created in Thessaloniki many new jobs, which weren't able to be fulfilled by the local staffers and by the local people that they are working on the community. Of course, everybody at that point decided that they should support and work with the university in order to create special programs of trainings around the film industry and about film production. However, we are now at the phase of these programs beginning in some of the works that actually need in film production, but the CulturePolis program is actually right now collapsing. So what I wanted to say with that is that we need to work more closely while developing programs and not being so isolated from what the state knows, for example, that it's going to be developed. Because as Yorgos Papadakis explained to us, the state procurement and the way that the state organizes itself, it needs more time than we are actually need on the field. And this is a contradiction that we have to find solutions on that. The other one is about the digital skills. Of course, this is an issue that we are facing for many years now. But however, I would like to start I would like to share more about how to use AI as an opportunity and not as a threat to our work. And why is that? Because most of us know that we are one woman or one man show in our businesses. That means that most probably AI with these new tools that they are creating will be able to help us do our job faster, that we know very well it is something that really challenges us when we have to produce, to, as Yorgos again said, to think creatively about our projects, write our proposals, and of course, produce at the end what we have been financed for. So we should look more carefully, and we should not be afraid of AI, and we should try to see how they can support us, especially in the fields of communication and marketing. Of course, excuse me, intellectual rights, and especially digital intellectual rights, is a very hot topic right now, again through AI. But here I want to go to the other states, the states of advocacy. We cannot be able to advocate for our work if jobs are lost in the future, if we first do not understand how this works. So we have to be trained in order to be able to create change or to advocate towards our actual needs and our actual rights. And of course, coding and data analysis are something that, as we understand from our mapping, is something that really interests our members, because being able to be in the digital environment at the same time, and not only in real life on stages, is something that also needs to be addressed and understand in order to maximize the effects of our work. Our third pillar is scale up entrepreneurial skills, cultural entrepreneurial skills. The START program, as again mentioned before by Christos, it was a really impactful program for our sector in Greece. But this created, people that are actually entering the field. Right now, they're blossoming. Christos is blossoming now because he's one of our speakers. We need to go one step further. And however, we cannot understand how investments work, how procurement work. We do not understand, and we don't have access to guaranteed funds in the way that European Union countries, the more rich ones actually do. For example, in Germany, for Creative Europe programs, they actually cultural companies are able to get loans in order to put their 20 or 30 or 40% of their personal funding, while in Greece we have to find our own. We actually putting our own money into this until the creation of the product is bringing us income. And of course, to be able to internationalize our services in other countries, and starting from the Southeast Europe, from the neighboring countries that we are in better collaboration with them. Other thing is cross-sectoral curriculums, especially for us that we are working in the intersection between civil society and culture. We need to find curriculums of trainings that have to work together to different sectors, like, for example, art and environment, culture and health. And lastly, and I want to link this with the problems that we are facing in finance, in finding funds, is that we have to start understanding better how to sell our work, how to make others understand the impact that we are creating. Because unfortunately, for the majority of the, especially if we are working with local authorities, for example, it is very difficult to understand our methods of working. And so to be able to measure our social impact, not only by quantifying numbers of how many participants were in our program, but also in a more qualitative methods by using especially storytelling, is something that we have to put everybody in the heart of our work and understand how to do that, and be able to produce sustainability reports that can actually show why we can actually be very important partners to collaborate with. And this, of course, is linked again with the ESG, how many acronyms here, with the environmental, social, governmental key performance indicators, which again, it is very important to start using in our proposals and in our how to say, and by writing down and be able to quantify them again in numbers and in stories. So here is a little bit, you need to focus more on the down bottom left side of this presentation. And so what we also understand after coronavirus, the atypical forms of education are very in the heart of what we are doing right now. And of course, all these online tools can help us receive information that it would be very difficult to do so before coronavirus, because it wasn't in the heart of what we are doing. So networks can actually accelerate these processes, because they can, with the limited, again, resources that they have in their disposal, amplify this work for the rest of our members. For example, by having a digital library where we have all the content of all the trainings that we have done in the past, already being there. And for example, for the 2024, we have initiated trainings around green practices and social impact measurements methods, so that we can help them be more attuned with what the majority of the funding schemes are requiring at the moment. And again, we accelerate time for them by finding interesting opportunities for trainings, and we are by making MOUs of collaboration with different partners. We are giving access to our members, and because, as I said, we cannot understand everybody's needs, because all needs are different. We are giving scholarships as a process, like it is more from the bottom to the top, where they decide where they want to do a training, and we can provide small microfund scholarships for them, because maybe what is for them interested, and it has to do maybe for the city of Kastoria, where we have also a member, it is not interesting for the rest of the people that work in Athens. So we cannot exclude that person from being able to take a training, because the majority is going to win by asking something else that works for, because the majority of our members are in Athens, for example. So I hope that I shared some examples of our work and of our solutions. I'll be happy to answer to any questions that you might have. And again, CulturePolis and Maria Luisa, thank you very much for this opportunity to share the work that we do in Culture for Change.
Thank you so much, Argyro. It's really nice to have the perspective of a network and the aggregated results and needs of the members of a network that is growing all the time. So I would like to move to the next speaker, which is our last speaker for today's roundtable, and it is Kelly Diapouli. She's the artistic director of Larnaca 2030 European Capital of Culture candidate city in Cyprus. She's a curator and cultural manager based in Greece and Cyprus. She has been an international cooperation manager in the Hellenic Culture Organization Cultural Olympiad, and the artistic director of LFC's 2021 European Capital of Culture from 2014 to 2020 in Greece. And as I said, she's again part of a European Capital of Culture candidate city. Her work focuses on international cooperation and networking, participatory design processes, and community-based work. She holds an MA in European Cultural Policy and Administration and a BA in Theatre Studies. So we've invited Kelly because she, we hope, can share with us from the perspective of a organization linked to a local authority, maybe challenges and great examples that she and her team have developed. Kelly.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Maria Luisa and CulturePolis for the invitation. Indeed, I will share a short presentation. Yeah, oops, just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Put it in the presentation mode. Yeah. And anyway, probably I cannot put it in the presentation mode. It's okay.
We can actually see it now. We can see your presentation. Yes.
Well, as you said, Maria Luisa, my experience comes from working in regional cities in Greece and Cyprus, and that means mainly small, not the capital, smaller cities. So I try to describe very briefly what are the challenges, the lack of creative skills, the big lacks, the big gaps, and how through the work in Elefsina, both in Elefsina and in Larnaca, I used to address these challenges together, of course, with a team. So first of all, at city level, there is a big lack of cultural strategies and policy and cultural policy skills. Usually, the reality of regional cities is that the governance system is very obsolete. There is usually one person who is there for lifetime, who manages culture, or even worse, a committee of members of the city council, the cultural committee, who make the decisions. There is not not only there is no policy, but there is no understanding of what a cultural strategy is. It's striking that we are an organized sector. I mean, we talk about the creative economy for decades now, but at city level, the main understanding is that, you know, what culture is about and what cultural policy is about selecting events, selecting this event, selecting that event, and this is a job that everybody can do. So the first thing, the first big challenge is to introduce the local authorities in what cultural strategy is. And my experience says that no matter how much you try through storytelling, through presentations, examples, etc., because we are talking about something that it is a a living experience. So as a sector, we live and work in very different environments from the ones that the members of a city council in a regional city live and work. You can never match that gap. So my approach is usually to go straight to action and to start processes and have them learn by example and by doing. So what we did and what we are doing also in Elefsina, but in Larnaca as well, and in a more extensive way, is we start with participatory design process. We invite people, starting with a cultural sector, and then expanding in other targets and groups of the community, like the educational community, the entrepreneurs, everybody, and invite them to discuss and to have a participatory design, to be part of a participatory design process that sets the goals and the wishes and the desires for what kind of city they want to live in. Then there are, especially in regional cities, there are many gaps and there are skills missing also at sectoral level, so at the cultural sector level. First of all, in these cities, we have individual artists that don't, most of the times they might not even have a company, so a legal entity, a body. So you have to do, literally with people and not with organized bodies. Also, my experience both from Elefsina and from Larnaca says that the cultural sector, the existing cultural sector, is somewhat disconnected from the European cultural ecosystem. People have not traveled a lot. They are not. They had not been in festivals abroad, big festivals like Avignon, for example, in the performing arts. They are not aware of resources and opportunities. They are not aware of networks like the International Network for Contemporary Performing Arts, IETM, or On the Move, which is the European Network for mobility information. So this means they don't have access to information, and they haven't experienced also themselves international networking and working internationally. And so here also the answer is introducing by and trying to develop these skills through living experience, because no matter how much you describe, for example, what is happening in a festival or what is happening in a network meeting, nobody can understand. He has to experience it. He or she has to live it. So what we are doing in both cases is that we start micro grants or creating opportunities for the local sector to travel abroad and to attend these meetings, to go to festivals, to go to international meetings. The photos that you are looking at are from the IETM plenary meeting in July 2024, where we went with some people from the local cultural sector, artists that are engaged in the performing arts. And so to create opportunities for our local sector to get more international and to understand the European ecosystem is vital, especially if you're working in a project like the European Capital of Culture, where 100% of the program you need to develop is international cooperation-based projects. Also, at sectoral level, what I find more and more, one of my is that is a lack of mediation skill. We know how to produce an event. We are very good in production. We know how to organize an event, but we don't know how to address an event. This part also in the everyday experience is very striking. This part is something that artists and cultural operators usually leave on the side or do not engage very much. They do not put their much of the effort there. So both in Elefsina and now in Larnaca a lot, we are trying to put a lot of focus on how we address the event, how we build it. And it's true that a big percentage of our program is co-creative projects. So in this way, we ask from the cultural sector to get in contact and then develop partnerships with other sector. The photos you see is from a project we did in the city center, where a group of 15 designers and architects co-created this a common ground event together with the Association of Shopkeepers, so together with 77 shops of the city. So bringing the artists and the cultural operators in contact and asking from them to cooperate with different groups of the society, being from the entrepreneur, from the business sector, be it from the educational sector, is a way to develop skills of mediation. Although there is a need, I would say, for a specific focus on mediation skills. Yeah. Which leads us to the next thing. Overall, there is a need for participatory design skills and co-creation skills. Artists and cultural operators, we are used to work in our studios, to work disconnected from the community, and I'm afraid we can no longer afford to do so. The pictures you see is from 2 events. One is in Elefsina, a performance, a site-specific participatory performance that Evripidis Laskaridis had done back in 2016, I think, and 17, with people from a very deprived neighborhood, the refugee neighborhood of Elefsina. And the other one is a performance of Naya Karakosta, actually, in Larnaca, that also took place and was co-created with some of the inhabitants of the Turkish neighborhood. So again, a refugee neighborhood in Larnaca, and it is it's really amazing the type of energy that these works bring in the city, and how easily people engage, and they become an event of the whole city. So I think there are strong lessons to be learned from this type of art projects and artworks. And finally, it is also, we are not used as cultural operators and artists. We were not taught anywhere. Christos also spoke about this, on care as praxis, on how to implement caring practices in our overall practice. So we need to do, I would say, the transition from independence to interdependence. And this means intercultural skills, so how to engage and to integrate and to work with the different communities of the city, the communities with different ethnic and religious backgrounds, how to work with and integrate in the program the accessibility practices and policies. We are developing now an accessibility strategy together with Liminal and Naya. And generally speaking, how we integrate care, because the aesthetics of care and the practice of care in our everyday way of working. This is it for me. I hope I haven't taken much of your time, and I tried to somehow summarize 3 main points. For me, this would be the main point. And again, thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. It's very interesting to see that there are similar challenges in the 2 different examples between Greece and Cyprus that you're experiencing firsthand. And thanks again for your presentation. And now, actually, we've heard so many interesting stories and experiences. And I'd like most of all to ask if anyone has a question who would like to raise the hand, so we can just know if you want to have a question or comment to a particular speaker, or suggest something, an idea, because our goal from these roundtables, and I'm not sure I mentioned this in the beginning, is to bring on board challenges, exchange ideas, brainstorm, and come out with something, come out with a proposal maybe. So maybe we can come up for a policy suggestion, for an advocacy activity. Maybe we can ask Argyro or Kelly or Yorgos or somebody else from their experience to take the methodology and try and test it in another location. So we really look forward to this kind of exchange. So I don't know if anyone, if speakers want to comment or ask anything, just please raise your hand and we'll try to do this as openly as possible. Okay. No comments, no food for thought. Actually, I'll start with something we had in mind with Elias and our team. We wanted to continue the research I showed in the beginning, the research towards artists and their skills. So we are running right now for, as part of another project, research which is specific to women artists from 18 to 30 years old in Greece. But we would love to have some feedback for specific skills or ideas of training that we have in mind, so we know what's available from your projects and organizations. So when we ask, we can somehow match, this, because one thing is to ask openly, what are your needs in terms of skills, and the help and assistance you might need. So Naya mentioned some really good examples, also from the local context, but then it's also good to know what's available out there. So we try to do this kind of matching at some point. So please let us know if, there's something we should definitely put in those surveys. I mean, we could circulate actually the survey before it runs. So we would really appreciate your feedback. Any idea is welcome. Okay, I'll start with Argyro maybe. Yeah, and then Kelly. Thank you.
No, because I want to, just to start the conversation, if we can, just to give some, a little ignition. For me, what is missing is definitely understand the level of entrance of the participants on the subjects. So we can move from the big, creative skills. When all this started to happen when the CCIs became a pillar of the development of the EU. Everything started from that era. So from that point, it has been like 10, 12 years. I can't recall exactly. So we need to make more specification of the trainings, different levels of entrance, of how mature they are in the market, or if they are entry-level professionals or not. This is something that really is lacking, and yeah, all issues right now are complex, and we need time in order to think more about it, be able to experiment, understand context. For example, how can you do a cross-sectoral curriculum if you cannot understand the context of the other sector? So how you can do interventions, how you can do projects. So it is more complex and than we think from the outside point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Argyro. It's noted. Kelly.
Yeah, similarly, I couldn't agree more with Argyro that it's not, I think it's probably not realistic to ask for an overall skills development plan, because the needs are very different depending on the entry point, depending on the place where you are. I spoke from the perspective of regional cities. In capitals, things are different for sure. And also, it has to do with the different targets. So, for example, the city authorities is a totally different target from the artists and the cultural operators. So I would say that actually, I don't know if it is feasible to talk about an overall creative skills plan, but what is maybe more meaningful is to focus on specific needs of targets and develop in a very good level a niche or a part of a need. The way, for example, Christos and Liminal, they are developing a very specific need and target, and they are doing it in an excellent way because it's become their main subject. And they get an expertise in that. And in my experience, I would say that also at the European level, you see something similar. Even the networks, the organization, they specialize and address specific needs. Julie's Bicycle, for example, for many years now, they are developing the strategies and tools for green development and greening our practices. On the Move is developing the mobility aspect. I think it's more a question of how we can identify small organizations that specialize on these needs, or if you are an organization who you want to address, generally speaking, these creative skills needs, to start from something small but very specific and develop that very consistently and very systematically. That would be my perspective.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. You're totally right, actually. If I may share from our side, from CulturePolis, as Milan mentioned, we are also in the part of civil society and culture, and this is our DNA. And very often we are overwhelmed by the challenges, and we try somehow like a savior, like an incapable savior to to cater to this need and cater to the other need, but we are only a small team with limited funds and limited resources, as Christos said. So it's true that with the big EU policies that try to work on all the different levels, but there are about 40,000 bureaucrats in Brussels who work on that. So it's a very different approach. We cannot compete, and we're not competing, but somehow it feels like also through the funding streams that there is a kind of competition of how we're going to develop our skills based on the needs we have in our work. So Christos, you want to share a comment or something, please?
Yes, I think that again is a common issue in both countries, and I think we should try to start talking about the elephant in the room. And I think that these issues and what we discuss and this skills development for the creative sector is something that we have been discussing for a long time. There have been promises. I don't know what is happening with Acropole in Athens and several other initiatives that have been announced, especially when we are about to have elections. So I think that one thing is we have to discuss is how do we keep the state accountable? I mean, which are the means for us to keep accountable the ministries, the municipalities, the public institutions which are operating with public money, and they do not operate. And I personally find myself very often trapped in this. I have to pretend that I don't see this uncertainty of people not doing their job and talking, no actions, a lot of promises, and you have to pretend that you don't see, because if you try to criticize, then you are getting into this blacklist, or at least you are risking to get there. So I think that in order to develop our skills, we have to develop our skill to communicate in an equal basis with the institutions and the public sector, and for sure to find mechanism in order to keep the public sector accountable. I have been in Cyprus the last week, and I heard some. I experienced actually a case that we were running a participatory workshop with a municipal officer, that she came half an hour later, she left half an hour earlier, and she was all the time on her phone. And I feel really ashamed of myself that I felt that I didn't have the power to tell her, please leave your phone on side, participate. You are co-organizing this thing. You are representing a municipality. So I think that we have to develop these skills to be honest and communicate our needs. And maybe collectiveness is a way to get us stronger in order to be able to risk this thing. But I don't know. I feel like the boiling frog uh, system. Yeah. Sorry.
No worries. Yes, Stelios, please. Thank you, Christo.
Hello to all. Talking about digital skills, I just could not find the raise my hand button. And I've been looking
That
for that
works too.
for 5 minutes now, to be honest. I don't know what I've done here. Thanks for organizing this. That was very, very interesting input from all of you. Very briefly, my organization is focusing lately on supporting small insular communities in Greece. And what's unique about that is that there, the borders between community and municipality are very blurry. These are areas where people interact on a more essential way, not thinking so much about roles, and that gives quite a few pleasures, to be honest. I agree with all the experiences shared and notice how much part of the skill building has to do with how to navigate through a very absurd, complex, not rational, and not efficient reality. And I was wondering if it should really be about us developing skills in navigating through such a system, or it's about understanding at least these parts a little bit more systemically, and wonder what is the capacity building that people working in the Ministry of Culture or in the cultural departments of municipalities, because after all, these people are cultural stakeholders as well. We talk a lot about our skill building, and I wonder if it's efficient or even fair to try to understand how to navigate through 10-page with so many complex issues and papers, open calls. I'm having such an experience today, but I won't tell you which one it is. And whether it's about creating and developing something more collaborative, that the exchange of experience will allow for the calls to be easier, for the communication to be easier. Where is the common space that will not only have to do with our side to once more develop more skills in order to be able to adjust to such an international situation, and how all the things that trouble us, there are a lot, can somehow be co-created by building skills on both sides. This was one thought. The other thought was about Acropole in Athens also. My office is so close, and I was really hoping that there the understanding of space for education on the sector has been understood. Apparently it has not. Anyhow, thank you very much sharing those thoughts with you.
Thank you, Stelios. If I may just take this, what you mentioned about building skills in both sides, there are various programs. Let's just also be honest, because it's not just about the legalese language in, as Yorgos explained very well, with the procurements and everything. But there are programs that are developing the skills of public sector employees, and Interreg programs are one such area of funding that municipalities and regions take funding from to do this. It's not very impactful always, but it is actually one step towards this direction. So maybe a good idea. What I also want to mention one more thing before Leah comments as well. What we're going to do with CulturePolis is we've approached the new members of the European Parliament from Greece, Cyprus, and the members of the CULT committee, the newly elected ones. And we are organizing around maybe March or April a visit in Brussels where we would have prepared for meetings. And our wish is to take all the comments and all the feedback we can. And as we are self-financing this trip, partly self-financing because we are actually building this meeting with another project meeting. So we get some travel budget and then we can do our meetings as well. We are going to try to convey those, because we had a discussion with a DG EAC official from the European Commission, and they said, guys, you need to group in Greece. You need to organize yourself to advocate, and you need to claim. If you don't come because you're afraid that you will be in the blacklist, as Christos said, to report what's going on in your community and your country. If you not organize yourself and send us requirements and also send us data from the research, we are not able to do anything as officials in the Commission who prepare draft documents for the European Commission overall, and then go to the European Parliament. So it was really a simple point that they made, but I had forgotten that this is part of our rights. We do it through the networks we participate in, C4C, Culture Action Europe, On the Move, IETM, and so on. But it is one very important point. Leah, please. you have a comment or question.
At first, good evening at first, and many thanks for being part of it. And I would like to congratulate everybody and for the initiative and on your presentation. I'm a theatrical reviewer, and I'm a general secretary of the Association of Greek Critics for Theatre, Music and Drama. And I would like to point out the skill gaps that exist in our field. And I had so much information, and this was very encouraging, because I think that we can cooperate and have a vision, because criticism and reviewing is facing some difficulties because they lack the scientific systematic criticism. Sometimes this has to do with the performance elements, or with the fact that the reviewers are not familiar with the theater, with the drama history, or are not familiar with the systematic, with the semantic of theater. And if there is any chance of participating in researches, we would very much interested in participating, and that I just want to add this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leah, for sharing, and it's very welcome. And maybe we can focus also on some subsector research if we set the stage for the overall research so far. So I don't know, the time is 7:32 on my clock. Would you like maybe to close, or any other comments or wishes or something? Up to you. One last round, and I think we can say thank you to everyone. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ in Greek, as we're talking about two Greek-speaking mainly countries. And thank you again for joining at such a late time of the day. And please send us your feedback. We would really, really love to have the feedback, and share it with the networks mentioned here today. Members who are here, please share the news, and we'll try and do our best to collect all the feedback from your side. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Ηλία, μπορούμε να το να βγάλουμε...
Ναι, στο κάνω τώρα.
Α, ωραία. Πολύ ωραία. Η CSO είναι